In January of 2006 is an official campaign track in Trackmania Nations. At a first glance, a very simple looking track, consisting of only a wall ride turn up to the finish, and it didn't take very long for players to optimize it. After only a few months, the world record list on D6 included a triple tie at 9:46, and the rest of the top 10 were all within 200ths of a second. Perhaps this is to be expected for such a short track, but in a game as complex as Trackmania, you'd be surprised how far the records can be pushed. A few weeks later, something incredible happened, with the entire top 10 having 4-second runs, and the world record being a 3.99 by Smokey. For the first time in the game's history, a map had been shortcut using a combination of two ridiculous bugs. And in the 18 years since this event, players have only gotten better at harnessing the flaws in the game to optimize their runs to perfection. This is the story of how Trackmania players conquered bugs.
You will eat the bugs. Hey, shit's thank you for Prime sub. Court up with the 8 years. Thank you, man. Join a badge. Little Zigo in herbs. Keen pony.
The D6 shortcut is truly historic. It was done for the first time in the summer of 2006, and it opened most people's eyes to how broken a game Trackmania could be. The idea of the shortcut is obvious enough, but getting up to the finish looked impossible. No matter how you climbed the wall, you just wouldn't get the height required to fly through the finish. But perhaps that wouldn't be a problem, because already on the second day of the game being out, a big discovery was made on another campaign track. On the 28th of January in the same year, the player Hanu was driving age 3 and attempting to get a good time. It's another very simple map with just a quarter pipe jump up to a few different finishes. Since he was aiming for the top finish, he flipped out late and high from the quarter pipe, but he still undershot the jump by a lot. Fortunately though, he managed to hit the exact area just below the finish line, and his run counted. In the days following, hundreds of players copied this strange bug to get their own 4-second time on the leaderboards. But for a while, it didn't see much use beyond that one map. Copying a strategy you've seen someone do on a track and having the foresight to attempt it on other maps is two quite different things. It would take 2 months before another use case of it was found on the track G2, where the world record strategy used to be threading the needle in a precise gap, but where now, with the knowledge of the bug finish being possible, Algor 38 dropped off the side of the railing early, hitting the finish line from the side and improving the world record by a huge margin for such a short track. The reason this works is due to an oversight from the developers that has the finish line hitbox extending out to the side of a block, and it can also be hit from underneath, exactly below the road border. A few months later, and in the case of D6, it's likely that some players knew the bug finishes existed, and it's natural to set up on the left side to try to fly up into it, but without getting the wheel lift, the shortcut wouldn't work. And what exactly was that thing? Nobody really knew why it happened, but when crossing the green border enough times, this weird phenomenon would eventually happen, and if it did, you could beat D6 in just 3.9 seconds. In broad terms, this was the Trackmania equivalent of a caveman striking 2 rocks together and accidentally making a fire. A stunning coincidence that, if it could be properly understood and harnessed, would have massive implications for other tracks too. Though before trying to understand the bugs, players wanted to know whether or not they would be patched out of the game, as they were frustrating in regular gameplay and even in competitions, where many great runs would fall victims to crossing the side edges and getting a huge wheel lift, instantly resulting in a crash. And for the devs, it must have been a difficult situation. On the physics side of things, it's likely they didn't know how to easily fix these bugs without making changes to the car or blocks, which would come with a new set of problems, invalidating past records and breaking old maps. But the biggest issue was likely financial. In 2008, Nadeo revamped all their past games into 2 titles, Trackmania Nations Forever and Trackmania United Forever. Nations Forever was completely free to play, and featured the Formula race car, where United had the Formula race car plus 6 other vehicles that you could compete on. Nadeo's business model was banking on that people would discover Nations Forever and then later upgrade to United to play the other cars. but almost nobody did. In Nations, you could play endless hours of content in online lobbies, official campaigns, and user-made maps. You could also make your own maps and skins as well. With so many things being offered for free, it made very little sense to upgrade. And this almost caused Nadeo to go bankrupt before they were bought by Ubisoft in late 2009.
Ubi shit. Shit.